Global Season 1 Finals. I am Wolf. With me is Caldor. We're about to go into our winners match for Group B.
We have a really interesting group so far. Both of the games went into a Game 3 that we saw, and we have our winners match now coming up with the Terran versus Protoss. MVP successful against Axiom's Young, and now he has to deal with his team.
Yeah, he does. This is going to be really exciting, man. I'm having just a really hard time accepting the fact that we get to see MVP versus Alicia in our winners match. One of these two players will be advancing to the brackets for tomorrow. First map is Neoplanet S. We've been seeing that map a lot today, in fact.
Yeah, we definitely did. And the map is actually loaded, so we're jumping right into the game. We have a Terran versus Protoss here in our winners match. It is another best of 3 at the WCS season finals here in Korea. Let's just jump right into the game. And starting to the top right of Neoplanet S, we have in blue our Terran player for Team LGIM. He took the best of 3 against Alicia's teammate, against Ryung. Yes.
LGIM MVP from Europe.
MVP up against the Axiom player. To the bottom left of the map. Successful against MVP's teammate Kang Ho. It is
Axiom Alicia from America.
And Alicia, a great player against Zerg. We've seen in the games against Lucera why that is. He has apparently a bit of a problem here and needs to pause the game.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just have a short little pause. I'm sure we'll get a very quick update on what the reason for the pause is. I suspect he might have had to move computers or booths during our break, and maybe he didn't set up one of his hotkeys correctly and realized it. A very good time to realize, however, that that's not what you want to realize. Suddenly when you go to build your Immortal, you're like, oh, my Immortal hotkey for build is wrong, and now I have to pause halfway through the game. And
yeah, we're only a couple of seconds into the game, so it's not going to be a big issue that is going to affect the match itself and the outcome. But this is the first map of our winner bracket, and we were about to talk a little bit about how strong Alicia actually is against Zerg. This is the matchup where he shines these days, especially with this Void Ray style. Against Terran, it's a very different game for him, and he is, of course, trying now to take down MVP, one of the strongest Terrans that we have in all these groups. Innovation, of course, being the shining light at the end of the tunnel that all the Terran hope is based on. But MVP, a player that has so many championship titles, he won so many GSLs and also foreign tournaments. Yeah. And he is really strong in Heart of the Swarm against Protoss.
Yeah, he's very well known, and he's one of those Terrans that nobody's ever going to forget just because he has so many titles. I mean, in 10 years from now, nobody will have forgotten him. He's just one of those players who's always been around.
In Europe,
go on. I was just gonna say we still have an update, but
yeah, we don't really know what's going on right now. But one thing that we can tell you is how MVP, of course, ended up to be here. The Protoss player that he faced in Europe was first of all Sase, and he demolished Sase. Sase played 2 best of 3s against MVP in the group stage and wasn't able to take a single map against his opponent. So that trend kind of continued as well when MVP was facing opponents like Mana, Grubby, and then also Feast. The only Protoss player that really was able to best the LGIM champion here was MC. MC with a 3-1 against MVP was successful. That was at MLG. But besides MC, the only player who won, the only Protoss player who won against MVP offline in Heart of the Swarm was actually Rain. That was the very first Protoss versus Terran that MVP played here. Since then, his record more than stellar. He has more than a 70% win ratio in this match.
Yeah. So he's saying he thinks there's a problem with the game speed.
So yeah,
we
want to check that as fast as possible. That is, of course, something that happened in the past already, and you just have to make sure that this is not going to happen again here. So really good that Alicia immediately pauses the game and makes sure that everything is in order. And let's see how...
he says he's not even really sure, but he says he thinks that they might have to check it and maybe even restart the game, and even MVP says he's not even really sure either.
Yeah, so better safe than sorry. I really respect that. And we had issues like this in the past, so it's really good that they pointed out immediately. Alicia demanding the pause here, just talking now to MVP and also, of course, to the admins and making sure that they double-check that the game speed is actually correct so that we can continue with the match. We might have to go for a rematch here. I guess that the OGN admins are going to figure out very soon what exactly is going on. But yeah, we're still talking. So we will have a regame here, and good choice. Safe choice, I like it.
Yeah, so
we had that actually in Warcraft in a lot of tournaments, and not with the game speed immediately, but the one problem that we always had in Warcraft is that once the Korean players started to come into the scene, they were very reluctant to pause the game if there was a problem. And there were back in the days a lot of lag issues that could be resolved during a game, where you could just have waited a little bit. And a lot of players just continued playing. It was a huge, huge thing in the scene that people started, and players talked about it, and also admins, and they said, like, guys, don't complain after the game. That doesn't help you at all. If you play the game, then it's you being okay with what happens here. And, for example, we had wrong maps being hosted, wrong versions, and player just going along with it, and then after the game suddenly complaining, yeah, but it was the wrong map. And it's like, if you don't say that in the game itself, then it's your own fault. You have to pause the game and you have to say right from the start, guys, there is an issue, we have to talk about this, and once everything is fine, then we proceed.
Sometimes Korean players are very reluctant to pause because of history. There's been times where games have lost because you type 2 P's in chat instead of or 3 P's instead of 2 to try to request a pause. It's illegal, and then of course since you're not allowed to chat it, people will lose points or get disqualified or get warnings, and games have been lost by players trying to change their settings. In Brood War, I think Nalra lost a game where he was trying to change his settings. He accidentally hit the pause button in the actual context menu and then just lost the game, of course, because he accidentally paused. And so that type of strict history kind of leads Korean players into oftentimes being worried about pausing. In, of course, Starcraft 2, things have settled down quite a bit, and much more lenient rules. So in this case, they're just going to restart the game. I don't even know if there was a problem with the game speed. He said it was just his feeling, and they were like, this is weird, so we just restart, and that's what's going to happen.
I actually think that the middle ground is like the perfect solution. One of the things that I personally very much disliked was when Ryang in the finals, when he was in not in the finals, but when in I think Las Vegas, he had this chat where he was going for imba. I think this is like the most
well, it's pretty disrespectful to say.
It's disrespectful to your opponents, disrespectful to the audience. It's very inappropriate. It's also disrespectful to the league, and I feel that something like this is absolutely not okay. But like a middle ground between the two things is
like Stefano saying, "Good luck, have fun" at the beginning of a game.
Exactly. That we had like pauses at. I know where they're coming from, so it's not like I can't understand it. But at Pro League, we had scenarios where Stefano was just going for good luck, have fun. Immediately, the game had to be paused, and they had to explain to him that he can't do that, and he might lose the match because
the reason why chatting was banned was because players would oftentimes if you could say something in chat that's inappropriate for viewers, that's one thing, but the second and more serious reason is he would oftentimes ask a question in chat like you've seen on the ladder, and then suddenly run vultures and drop spider mines in your mineral line, and you're like, well, that's not fair, he just asked me a question and then now I have spider mines in my mineral line.
And of course also when you have a TV production, you want to make sure that there is you want to eliminate as many factors as possible that could influence your broadcast in a negative way. So the way where they're coming from is of course understandable, but in the times that we have right now, just trying to find a little bit of middle ground where you can work with both is, I feel, really important. And in this scenario, it's being used perfectly. Alicia, realizing there's something wrong with the game speed, he immediately pauses the game, talks to MVP. Both of them agree that they're not quite sure yet, but it looks a little bit off. And then just early on in the game, before anything happened at all, deciding, okay, we're going to rehost this game. Very good choice here. And we are now in the game once again, so we're jumping into our first map in the best of 3 at the winners match between MVP and Alicia here in Group B at the WCS Finals in Korea. And our Terran player is starting to the top right. As mentioned before, he had to go up against a teammate of Alicia. He had to go up against Ryang in game number 1. He won against the Axiom player, and now he is facing the Protoss. The Terran on screen, he is
LGIM MVP from Europe.
Dismantled Sasa with a 4-0 basically in the group in Europe. Very successful against Protoss these days. 70% win ratio offline. And to the bottom left, we have his opponent. It is
Axiom Alicia from America.
Alicia had to face a team member of LGIM, a teammate of MVP in his first game. So this group is kind of the fight between Axiom versus LGIM. And Alicia was successful against Kango after falling behind in game number 1. So now they are facing each other. And Alicia didn't play too many games against Terran offline in Heart of the Swarm just yet. He faced Supernova once in the GSTL and won the game, and he also faced a little bit earlier than that Keen, player for Team MVP, and lost against him. So not a lot of data to go on.
Yeah, not too much. I mean, this matchup, just not the matchup played most by these players, especially seeing these players go to the top of their league, and in both regions there were a lot of Zergs up there. So just hitting more Zergs than the opposite matchup. But as it stands right now, we have a probe going to get in here and see the gas for MVP. There's nothing he can do to stop it since he went gas first. He just doesn't have a Marine out, and the probe will see everything, so Alicia will respond, possibly with a faster robotics.
Yeah, Alicia now with the probe scout here, and he can definitely adapt to what he's currently observing in his opponent's base right now. But with the gas, there's just a lot of potential for what MVP could do. We would, of course, expect him to go into an expansion and also then just go into the reactor here. But it's something where we might see him just pulling off a bit of a fast attack and maybe an attempted drop.
Yeah. The Reaper coming out first, but like you said, the Reaper is going to kill the probe scout, or at least chase it away, which means that now Alicia doesn't know what's next. Is he pulling out of gas? Is he going for a factory? And that's why he went in there and harassed those probes. It wasn't actually really harassment. He was just trying to find out, did you pull out or not? Are you going to mine 100? Because if you mine 100, that means that you have the Reaper and the gas, but if you mine any more than 100, it means something is happening. We have a nice little eBay block here.
Yeah, engineering block now at the natural, and so far there's nothing that his opponent knows about it. The Zealot even patrolling at the ramp doesn't get a glimpse of the eBay, and that is really annoying right now. He just waits for the Reaper, and he knows the Reaper is going to arrive in a second. Reaper finally moving down, but now he's missing in the main base, and this means that the Reaper can take down, that the Zealot is moving down, so the Reaper now has free reign in the main base and can even now start to attack the Zealot.
Yeah, if he can keep the Zealot's hit points down, that's ideal, and he can maybe even make it run away. Don't think that's going to happen, but the engineering base, so many hit points here, are going to deny this Nexus for almost an eternity. Now the Reaper comes back into the main base. We'll get maybe even one more probe kill. Don't think so.
Yeah, the Mothership core alone is just doing a decent job here, but the Reaper is being kept alive, and this allows him to jump into his opponent's base later again to just find out what exactly is going on further down the road. So MVP with a decent opening into the game, starting... Yeah, there's the cancel. Starting his command center on the high ground, and here comes the Nexus for Alicia.
Yeah, Nexus a little bit delayed, but as you said, the commands are on the high ground, and to make it so that kind of evens out a little bit.
Exactly, he has to lower it to the natural but later on, so that is definitely making him lose a bit of mining time here, and that's going to even out then further down the road. At this point, the bunker at the front will of course protect MVP for now. Alicia is not going to sneak in with the Zealot and the Stalker and the Mothership core here. We've seen a lot of Protoss players trying to be a little bit more aggressive in the early game. Not so Alicia this time. He's just sending out the Mothership core to get some information, a bit of scouting, and maybe even snipe an SCV if he's lucky.
Yeah, and this is just a great way to find out if a drop is coming or not, because he's going to get in there, we'll see the starport, and he's like, oh, okay, you transition this way instead of into a faster stim, or just a regular bio play. The Reaper is still around, wants to confirm the Nexus, and this is just a great Mothership Core Scout. I love this. You know, it takes some guts to do something like this, because you might end up losing it if there's a Marine pressure on the middle of the map. But now he sees everything, and he can just prepare adequately. He's going to make 2 observers now for sure. Keep one at home for the Widow Mines.
Reaper is once again active. The Stalker is not on the low ground, so the Zealot is having a bit of trouble here, but finally being rescued by the Stalker. And now we have those additional gateways for Alicia. So he's starting to get his gateway production up. MVP has the Widow Mines on the map and is now starting with his Medivac. So he can start to drop his opponent really soon. And at this point, we don't have detection for Alicia just yet.
Yeah, not just yet. He has the robo done. He hasn't started an observer for some reason, though.
It shouldn't be a problem for him to get the observer out once he realizes what's going on, but at this point he just didn't do it. So right now there it is. Okay, first observer has been started. He also has a few stalkers being set up in the main base so that he can defend against it, and then he should be fine. And he's also spotted immediately, MVP that is. I mean, the observer has the perfect path, sees the Medivac right off the bat.
Yeah. This pylon is toast, and not the good kind with cheese or butter or jam or something like that on it. It's gone.
Yeah. Well, one observer in the main base, another one being produced at home. He doesn't need the robo time at this point for his Colossi, but here comes that Widow Mine.
And the first one gets a shot off at the ramp. The second one will definitely hit something. It looks like maybe the Zealot. Yep. Zealot goes down, but that's not worth it. And you might save the second one. Nicely done.
Yeah, he saves it. I still feel he could have done... I don't feel the Terran players really target their Widow Mines as they should.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And
there are a lot of battles where you can't really pull it off because it takes too much micro.
Exactly.
But if you have such a limited amount of units that you have to control, this is not a circling army that is running towards you and where you suddenly have a 200 versus 200 fight and you have to control your Widow Mines. That's 2 Widow Mines, and targeting them a little bit should be possible.
For me, one of the bigger issues, and I wanted to talk about this in the TVT earlier, but there's so much going on, I didn't get a chance. Now that this Marine pressure is over, I think I can talk about it a little bit more. There's 2 ways to drop out of a medevac. Well, actually, there's 3. One is to target the medevac itself with the drop command, and then you do a running drop, which is what usually most players do when they do this type of drop. The third way is to just do it, target the ground, and the medivac will fly there and then unload everything at once. But the third way, and the best way to do it, if you're going to try to drop a Widow Mine specifically, is to actually target the units inside the medivac. You can drop them out in whichever specific order you want. So if you boost in and then click on the Widow Mine first, you can put it out first, but so many players will let the Widow Mine come out last, which means there's just enough time to actually DPS that down.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So you could do a bit more with a good target. Taking down 4 or 5 probes in the early game, that is so important. It gives you such an amazing lead over your opponent that it's always worth just to use those additional clicks. It's a bit harder to pull off, of course, but on this level, I feel that we're going to see that in the future.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely something that players will start to do a lot more often.
Alicia showed the robotic support bay, made 1 Colossus, and then now is going to very fast Templar, continuing his upgrades. I like this style.
It's a style that we've seen in Wings of Liberty already. You try to fake and just bait your opponent's Vikings out. Something that hasn't happened just yet. So MVP is not committing to Vikings at all. He's just getting his medivacs out. And this is, of course, always that one... You have to make this one decision. Do I get Vikings or do I get medivacs? And it's just a tough decision to make. If you overcommit to Vikings and your opponent is attacking with the Templar composition on the ground, then your lack of medivacs will come back and bite you.
You know, I'm really worried for Alicia here. MVP's macro is impeccable. He's up 30 supply, and he has even the better upgrades. He's going to have stim, combat shields, a bunch of medivacs. Storm isn't ready, and MVP is not waiting. There's no way Alicia can start a third base right now, and this attack, with only 1 Colossus there and no Storm, might actually just kill Alicia straight up.
And you know, talking about third bases, MVP, while moving out with his army, is dropping another CC now at the third, so this is something where he will also take another lead in his economy. It's all about how he approaches this army right now. Storm is not done, as you already said, and he could even just medivac into the main base, elevator all these units.
He has enough medivacs to do it for sure.
Yeah. He does, but the feedbacks, of course, that's what he's afraid of, and rightly so. With all the energy that we have on the medivacs, they would evaporate immediately.
And don't forget, Storm is just about to finish it. It's done now. He has a Templar on the high ground.
And there it
missed
is.
Storm.
A second one, not hitting too much, not killing a single unit here.
It buys him time, but you know, with the third base you were talking about earlier, MVP does not need a whole lot of time, but it's denied by a Zealot.
Exactly, the Zealot already here taking down the SCV, and that's a cool move by Alicia. This is really strong. He needs stuff like this to come back into this game, because he's still about 40 supply behind his opponent.
Yeah, he's very much behind. He has a few cards in his hand, like, for example, the fact that MVP doesn't have the Ghost Academy ready yet. He has Templar, he has Storm. Now he can start to move over and take that third base, but he has to do so very carefully. And these Zealots that he sends again to the north, this time are going to be intercepted. Well, are they? Yes.
Yeah, they will. He sees them. We have MVP now heading straight into additional medivacs. He identified that so far there's only 1 Colossus. And as a Protoss, you want to have both. Oh, hold that thought. We have the first few Storms being dropped here once again. MVP is darting in, still being active. Another Storm being dodged. Decent job here by MVP, doing a great job actually.
Yeah. And even though he loses a lot of hit points, loses a Viking here, the third base he's about to saturate is really the key. Dropping those mules down, and Alicia still hasn't even started it yet.
He wins so much time, and this is the important part. What Alicia wants to do at some point is have Storm and additional Colossi ready. But MVP has so much time to react to this, and now that his third base is done, the Terran player can harvest from 3 mineral lines, and this will give him a huge boost in income. And he's already ahead in harvesters.
Yeah, he is, and... you know, Alicia, just in this position, doesn't seem to know exactly what the next step is. He just keeps sending small Zealot run-bys. But, you know, it's not like he can double expand. That would be too much of a risk. He can't add a second robo or anything extreme like that because he can't afford it. So for him now, he just hope he can catch up with his upgrades, continue to chrono boost, and just turtle for a little while and start fighting MVP max versus max.
Talking about the upgrades, something that we don't see for MVP. There we go. +2 has just been started. He was getting a second engineering bay as well, and the armory was already completed earlier, so now we have him at least with the +2 attack upgrade. And armor should follow fairly soon.
Yeah, he has the gas for it now.
Yeah. Range has also been started for Alicia now that he decided to once again go into additional Colossi. Those Zealot run-bys won't do a lot. I really love this placement of the bunker. That is like perfect. Shielded by the mineral patches and an additional supply depot.
Yeah.
So the best defense that he could hope for his worker.
It doesn't really protect the command center itself, but it certainly protects the mineral line, that's for sure. Yeah. And here's finally the probe transfer Alicia's been waiting for.
But there's also the army that we have for MVP trying to move in.
All about the storm.
Alicia has to be careful. There's a storm doing a bit of damage, not taking down anything, and he's losing the Zealots now at the front.
Yeah, he needs the second storm, and there it is. Second one is decent, but he's going to need a little bit more than that. MVP up 50 supply now.
Yeah, and MVP is nearly maxed out. He's trying to move in again. And once again, the Marauders trying to dart in. Bam! Sniping those High Templars, forcing them to morph into an Archon.
Yep, he will get the Archon, but MVP just has a blunt force. He's going to just cut through everything here like a hot knife.
The Viking count is a little bit low. Only at 3 against 3 Colossi, but the third is wide open. He can move in, he can use Stim, take it down, and then just move back towards the right side of the map.
Exactly. He's distracting Alicia over here on the left with the Hellbat and a few Marines. Now getting the better position on the right side. Storm is decent, but he's wasting a lot of time here, and MVP is closing the distance once more. The Storms are awesome.
To move in and focus the army down, and there are those Storms, and they do a lot more damage this time. The Storm's so much better for Alicia now, doing a lot of damage and suddenly equalizing the amount of supply that we have.
Yeah, the base though is still being targeted. The third base is being targeted down.
He
saves the 170 hit points left.
I don't know if that was really the best decision to let this third base live. He definitely had the position to go just in and take it out
and then leave
towards the right. Exactly, but he decided that he has enough to take down the army, and he didn't pull it off. So now suddenly we have Alicia in a lead. MVP lost his advantage.
He didn't respect the upgrade advantage that Alicia had either. You know, if he had waited till 2-2 after the third base was gone and then just decided to fight, he could have done a lot more with this.
He did not have ghosts.
Yeah.
He really did not think that those Storms would be good enough to take him on, but without ghosts, it was an easy feat for Alicia once that both armies were really committing to the fight to get those good Storms off. Here come a few Marauders
this is
now.
A smart choice, but Alicia, is he wise to this? He is, and no target by MVP.
He could take down the gas here, and no.
Goes for the Nexus. He's going to get it.
Yeah, better choice indeed.
And here comes the attack, though. Can he hold? He has to hold this if he wants any hopes of winning this game, and I just don't see it.
Alicia is so far ahead in supply right now. 60 supply ahead. The Zealots are charging in. Yes, the third base for the Protoss player is gone, but does he really need it anymore? He is taking down everything that MVP has on the map, and the Terran player just running out of units.
GG. Alicia takes the lead here, and now map number 2, it's up to MVP to decide exactly where he wants to pick the battleground.
Yeah, MVP with a significant lead in the game, a huge amount of army supply, and also a great position. And we talked about this map in Protoss versus Zerg, and one of the things that Zerg does really well is trying to find a good position to fight and to always bounce between the natural and the third base. And MVP had the perfect position. He had the wedge between both bases, and he didn't use it. He saw the army of the Protoss player move out, and he thought, hey, if I get a good concave here, I can win this right now. But a better decision in this scenario would have been to walk towards the third base, take it out, and then just move back with the rest of the army, get a few ghosts out, and just wait for the Protoss player to attack. Because once the third is gone, Alicia has to do something.
Exactly. That's certainly very true. And if he kills the third base, sets up a defense at home, waits for his 2-2 before he fights, he's in a much better position. I think he got a little bit trigger happy there, and Alicia caught him off guard. He didn't have a Viking count that he needed to fight there either.
Yeah, big problem for him was also that in the scenario that we saw, we had just Alicia hitting the perfect Storms. At the beginning, they were really a little bit scrappy and he didn't get a lot of the damage done. But then suddenly we had him really hitting those Storms once that both armies were really committed to the fight. He hit them perfectly and it did so much damage to the huge bioforce that we had for MVP. So the Terran player struggling a lot against that. And the medivacs that he had, they couldn't compensate for it.
Yeah, just not quite able to do it. And you know, the Storms that we had out for Alicia, he chose a very quick and risky Storm tech, whereas if MVP had just waited and kept his base up and sniped the third, he would have been in an awkward position because Storms can do a lot for you defensively, but it's hard for you to attack on a big map like Neoplanet S with that Storm and use that tech to deny your opponent's third. At the same time, you always have to be worried about drops. Both players in the lobby, the map is Newkirk Precinct. That's what MVP has chosen.
And it's once again the normal version, right?
Yeah, so I suppose the graphic we had earlier was either they had the name wrong or something because...
Yeah, so originally we had a graphic online that the map pool consists of the adjusted Newkirk Precinct map, but we had already earlier on in one of our first sets the normal version being hosted. So either there's a problem with the hosting or the information that we had on screen earlier was wrong, one of the two.
Yeah, I think it's probably... I mean, if they're doing it twice now, it's probably the correct map is actually the latter version, or the old ladder version, I should say.
It would be very weird, actually, if they would mess that up. And also with the new version, players wouldn't have had time enough to prepare for this. So Newkirk going to be our next map here. Map number 2 between Alicia and MVP, jumping into the map right now at the WCS Season 1 Finals in Korea.